Hello, it's Friday, June 2nd, 2017. You are listening to Inception Radio Network, voice of the fringe majority. This is Carol Carl with ufo-headline-news. The folks at earthsky.com, that amazing site, promise us a weekend that's a great time to see Venus. There are images, of course, as usual, and it shows us an elongation. Venus is swinging 46 degrees west of the sun. After today, Venus will slowly but surely fall sunward toward sunrise and ultimately pass behind the sun. That's going to happen on January 9th. It's called a superior conjunction. That's when this world will transition out of the morning sky and into the evening sky. If you look up, you won't be able to miss Venus this weekend. It's the brightest planet, the third brightest object in the sky after the sun and moon. On these early June mornings, the planet Uranus snuggles up closely with Venus before dawn. Uranus is too low in the morning sky to be seen by the eye alone, but if your sky happens to be perfectly clear and free of city lights at night, and if you look in those magic moments when Venus and Uranus are relatively high in the sky, but free of dawn's early light, you might even be able to glimpse Uranus through binoculars. Uranus is some 10,000 times fainter than Venus. But you have to be careful not to mistake the star Omicron Piscium, it says right here, for this faint planet. Omicron Piscium and Uranus both share that same binocular field with Venus. But Omicron Piscium is a fourth magnitude star. Yes, you can see it with your eyes alone. It's about 4 times brighter than Uranus, yet it's 2,600 times fainter than Venus. Because Venus orbits the sun inside of Earth's orbit, this inferior planet always stays relatively close to the sun in our sky. Venus can never be opposite the sun like a full moon. In fact, Venus can't even be 90 degrees from the sun, as the half-lit moon is during its first quarter or last quarter. At its greatest elongation, Venus is only about half the angular distance of a quarter moon from the sun. And again, although Venus extends as far as 46 degrees west of the sun from every place worldwide, that does not mean Venus rises an equal amount of time before sunrise. At the Earth's equator, 0 degrees latitude, Venus rises a solid 3 hours before the sun. However, at those mid-northern latitudes, Venus rises some 2 hours before sunrise, and at mid-southern latitudes in the southern hemisphere, you folks get to see Venus rise 4 hours before sunup. There are 2 reasons, actually, why Venus rises sooner before sunrise in the more southerly latitudes. First, there's that thing called the ecliptic, the pathway of the sun, moon, and planets. It hits the morning horizon at a steep angle for folks in the southern hemisphere, and meanwhile, it hits at a more shallow angle in those northerly latitudes for the northern hemisphere. Logic, yes. Moreover, Venus lies somewhat south of the ecliptic. That causes Venus to rise all the earlier for the southern hemisphere, but all the later in the northern hemisphere. At this point, gentle listeners, we should remind you there are no pop quizzes here, nothing to study, just listen, learn, and enjoy. Bottom line, on the dates of June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 2017, the moon will be sweeping past Jupiter. With Venus up well before dawn, Jupiter is now the brightest star-like object in the evening sky. And here's a bonus. If your sky is somewhat dark, you can watch for the constellation Corvus the Crow. He'll be pointing right at the star Spica. We weren't able to find any kind of a real hearty follow-up for that Expedition 51 unlocking and the 2 crew members that were going to land in Kazakhstan. Just a little bit, so here's what we've got. This was posted by Mark Garcia at blogs.nasa.gov at 7:04 a.m. today. After spending 194 days aboard the International Space Station, Expedition 51 crew members Oleg Novitskiy of Roscosmos and Thomas Pesquet of the European Space Agency undocked from the station at 6:47 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time to begin their voyage home. The undocking marked the official start of Expedition 52 aboard the space station. Yes, there was a change of command ceremony. NASA television aired live coverage of the Soyuz deorbit burn and landing. That started at 8:45 a.m. The duo was set to land in Kazakhstan at 10:10 a.m. That's 8:20 p.m. Kazakhstan time. Together, the Expedition 51 crew members pursued hundreds of experiments in biology, biotechnology, physical science, and earth science aboard humanity's only orbiting laboratory. Their return's going to wrap up 196 days in space since their launch on November 17, 2016. We're keeping our eyes open for more information about this. Meanwhile, there will be a link for the NASA TV live deorbit burn footage. You can find that later at ufo-headline-news.com. And another follow-up. Here's a headline. Weather scrubs first SpaceX attempt to refly a Dragon. This is an update. They were going to try it yesterday, but as of 4:30 p.m. yesterday, bad weather prevailed due to lightning in the vicinity of Kennedy Space Center, which is not permitted within 30 minutes of liftoff. SpaceX scrubbed Thursday's launch attempt. The next attempt will come at 5:07 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday. The conditions weren't great as early as 11:55 p.m. Clouds, scattered thunderstorms, and that eventually led to the scrub. The launch is significant because it marks SpaceX's first attempt to refly a Dragon spacecraft. This particular Dragon first flew to the International Space Station in September of 2014. It delivered nearly 2.5 tons of cargo. That was SpaceX's fourth supply mission to the orbiting lab. Thursdays, well, what they tried to do on Thursday, whenever they get it up, it will be the company's 11th launch. The spacecraft has undergone significant refurbishment, and it's got a new heat shield. Nonetheless, the flying vehicle again would represent a significant milestone for SpaceX. In 6 decades of spaceflight, only the 5 space shuttles, 2 X-37B space planes, and a single Soviet VA spacecraft have made 2 or more orbital flights. No private company has ever achieved this feat. We're following this, and we will keep you posted. How about a UFO sighting? From ufomg.com. We're going to guess that's UFO magazine, perhaps. At any rate, the sighting happened in Monterey Park, California, on the 25th of May. There's a summary. Blue orb lit up 1 mile radius of land. Orb ascended straight up and turned white in color. Let's read the first-person eyewitness report. I was standing outside at the location listed above in Monterey Park, California, and a bright blue light lit up the night sky, causing me to see my own shadow on the ground as I looked up into the sky. I observed a light blue orb ascending up into the sky at a high rate of speed. As this thing ascended, it turned into a larger, bright white orb. The orb reached an altitude where it became a spherical haze. It dimmed out of sight through the heavy cloud cover above. I'm a big believer in UFOs, and I'm convinced we are not alone. This isn't my first experience. I didn't feel in fear for my safety at all. I was completely caught off guard when this occurred. My reaction to this was I immediately knew it was a UFO or something out of this world. The speed, it was so fast. It was able to travel up into the atmosphere. It was beyond anything that we probably can create as humans. It took milliseconds to travel from approximately 500 feet above my head to miles up in the sky. If you were to blink, you would have missed it. All this occurred within 2 to 5 seconds, if that. I found a picture later online. It resembles what I saw. It's a site called IF Science. Quote, "What on earth was this mysterious light in the sky above the West Coast last night?" End quotes, is the title for exactly what I saw. I was Googling to see if anyone else had seen anything remotely close, and I found something. Curious, that's always a good idea. See if someone saw what you saw, where and when. Sometimes there's comfort in corroboration. We've got a very interesting story from ufostalker.com. The title, the headline is UFO Sighting in Yucca Valley, California. But there's something a little extraordinary about who had this sighting. It was none other than Melinda Leslie. You might recognize that name, gentle listeners. Melinda Leslie has been a guest on various shows here on Inception Radio Network. And this last thing that she did that's made the news here is something that happened during the Contact in the Desert conference just a while back. She takes groups out on the dark nights that are present there in the desert in Joshua Tree and has probably third generation or greater night vision goggles, which she, of course, allows her people on the tour to use. And, of course, they come away with extraordinary sightings and experiences. Well, Melinda Leslie had one herself. Let's hear. This has a MUFON case number. It's 84123. The date of this sighting was the 21st of May, 2017, and it was reported the 1st of June this same year. In summary, Melinda Leslie says, military jet, 2 UFOs flying in tandem, immediately following, sighted amber diamond-shaped craft. Yucca Valley is the geolocation of this sighting, Yucca Valley, California. Yes, there are photos that accompany this sighting and a video, the likes of which this broadcaster has never seen. If you want to check those out for yourselves, they'll be available later at ufo-headline-news.com. Okay, down to the sighting specifics here. Melinda had a viewing distance of 501 feet to 1 mile. The altitude was over 500 feet, and there wasn't any cloud cover. The sighting duration was 10 minutes. The object features, however, just get that vague description of none. The flight path was a path with directional change. This object had a diamond shape. Let's see what the weather was doing over Yucca Valley, California. There was a maximum temperature of 98 degrees Fahrenheit, 37 degrees Celsius. Yep, it's the desert. The mean temperature was 82 degrees Fahrenheit, 28 degrees Celsius, dropping down to a chilly 66 degrees Fahrenheit, 19 degrees Celsius. The visibility factors were nothing remarkable. The standard 10 miles, 16 kilometers was the maximum, down to a minimum of 9 miles, 14 kilometers. And there was nothing abnormal about the weather conditions over Yucca Valley. So, buckle up, gentle listeners. Here is Melinda Leslie's incredible account. And she begins, incredible video footage of a military jet chasing a UFO. Parenthetically, she says, yeah, that's right, chasing one, right over our heads while out at the infamous giant rock in Landers at this year's Contact in the Desert conference in Joshua Tree, California. I, Melinda Leslie, was leading my Sunday night, May 21st sky watch with night vision goggle intensively out at Giant Rock on the third night of viewing. Luckily, one of my participants, Graham Slater, caught this and many of our other sightings. We had sightings on all 3 nights, no less. Graham Slater caught this with his black and white night vision video camera. His additional footage of some of the other incredible sightings is going to be posted later at a future date once they are all compiled. Here's a description of the jet chase sighting. Just before 10 p.m., did not note the exact time, some of my participants and I saw a large amber-colored light low on the horizon, just behind Giant Rock. That's where my whole group of about 50-plus people were gathered. We were using 15 pairs of night vision goggles. A contingency of about 20 of us ran to get a better view of it. To the naked eye, this thing appeared to be a large, orangish or amber light. And, quoting some of the 20 people, they said it, quote, flew like a bumblebee, end quotes. There's a guest named Tana Newberry who came running with a pair of goggles in hand, and she got a good look at it. She said that through the goggles, this thing looked like a large diamond-shaped UFO. She drew a picture. There's a picture attached here. This object then flew behind a small hill, right behind the entire Skywatch larger group. And those of us who ran off then walked back to join the others. At this point, 3 military jets flew over in the direction of the object, which was now gone from sight behind the hill. Some of us commented if, quote, they were following it, meaning the jets, they were a few minutes too late. Just then, we heard the sound of a low-flying jet from behind the hill. And suddenly, clearing the top of the hill, right over our heads, came a very fast military jet, chasing a faster, large, red, glowing light. The military jet had both red and white blinking strobe lights and glowing afterburners. It was very loud as it flew directly above our heads. The large red light had blinking lights and no sound at all. It became clear to all 50 witnesses this was no jet. Those folks present who looked with the aid of the goggles said what they were seeing was either two lights or one object with two light sources on it. After extensively reviewing my footage, I'm nearly certain that this shows two UFOs, fast-moving lights, flying in perfect locked tandem with one another. It appears you can see stars between them in the background, suggesting that these are two separate objects. As is usually the case, this footage, while incredible, does not do the sighting justice. The video's in black and white night vision, not full-color naked eye vision, and it doesn't have any sound, so you're not able to hear the palpable excitement of 50-plus witnesses screaming and cheering. Oh, if there's a mind's eye, is there a mind's ear? We can hear that with our mind's ear. Gentle listeners, if you've got some time on your hands, you might want to sleuth around on the internet and check out Giant Rock, George Van Tassel, Space Brothers et al. It's a fascinating read. The rest of our cyber UFO sighting trip now takes us to Phoenix, Arizona. MUFON case number 84107. This is an older sighting. It's from July 29th of 2016. Nobody reported it until the 31st of May this year. Here's the summary. Friend took photo of storm while driving home. Realized after the fact he captured more than storm. Yes, there are photos, and you can check them out later. Do your own home analysis at ufo-headline-news.com. Sighting specifics give us a viewing distance that was over 1 mile. The altitude was over 500 feet. Nope, no cloud cover. The sighting duration was only 5 seconds. Object features, other and unknown. Apparently, the flight path of this thing did not apply, according to our reporting witness, and the object was shaped like a circle. The weather, 112 degrees Fahrenheit in Phoenix, Arizona, 44 degrees Celsius. The mean temperature was 95 degrees Fahrenheit, 35 degrees Celsius, and the maximum 77 degrees Fahrenheit, 25 degrees Celsius. The visibility factors were nothing remarkable. The maximum was the standard 10 miles, 16 kilometers, dropping down to a minimum of 1 mile, 2 kilometers, because it was raining and thundering. Very short report. The interest is in the photos, and to see the photos, you can do that via link you know where. Here's the very short report. A friend sent me these photos, taken in Arizona while driving on the freeway. He did not see the object in question until later, as he looked at the photos when he got home. He was initially just taking a picture of the storm clouds. This is all I know. And I'm sharing this because I believe these photos to be real. To this broadcaster's eyes, yes, they look genuine, but then again, don't the really good hoaxes come off that way? Just saying. While in the beautiful state of Arizona, be sure to visit El Mirage. Oh, let's do that. It's MUFON case number 84052. Date of the sighting, 5/14/2017. Date submitted, 5/29/2017. Summary, witnessed by wife and I. You can hear us describe what we see as we see it. Sighting specifics give us a viewing distance 101 to 500 feet, fairly close. Altitude 500 feet or less, and there wasn't any cloud cover. The sighting duration was 44 seconds. Object features unknown. Object flight path, hovering, then path with directional change. And it seems that this particular object had a disc shape. Another hot desert temperature. The maximum temperature at the time in El Mirage, Arizona was 91 degrees Fahrenheit, which translates to 33 degrees Celsius, down to a minimum 71 degrees Fahrenheit, 22 degrees Celsius. All of those visibility factors stood the same, 10 miles, 16 kilometers. Nothing abnormal here about the weather. Here's the account. On the night of May 14th, a Sunday, at 10:08 p.m., my wife and I went for our usual night walk. Halfway through our walk, we both looked up into a cloudless night sky. What caught our attention was this red-orange orb hovering just above us and to the right. I immediately pulled out my phone to capture whatever this was. Being a former infantry marine, I knew what it wasn't: a flare. This object was over a residential neighborhood, and it was the only thing in the sky. It hovered for a few seconds before flying in a straight path. And then it started to bounce and fly in different directions before moving straight ahead again. Afterwards, as this thing started to flicker on and off before disappearing, you can hear on the video the exchange my wife and I are having as we describe what we're seeing. And they were both seeing it. That's the coolest part. Let's take our cool selves to Westland, Michigan, where MUFON case number 84122 happened. This happened May 23rd, 2017. It wasn't reported till June 1st. In summary, dark object came from the east, made 180-degree turn to the south, shape-shifted, formed bell shape, maintained southerly direction at cloud ceiling for 10 minutes, then out of sight line. The sighting specifics, other than that summary, include a viewing distance of 501 feet, which eventually became a mile. The altitude was over 500 feet. Yes, there was cloud cover. Sighting duration 10 minutes. The object features, though, are simply described as other. Object flight path, straight line path, then path with directional change. And this object was shaped like a sphere. Here's a weather report. At the time in Westland, Michigan, the maximum temperature was 73 degrees Fahrenheit, 23 degrees Celsius. Minimum temperature 57 degrees Fahrenheit, 14 degrees Celsius. The visibility factors went something like this: maximum 10 miles, 16 kilometers, mean 10 miles, 16 kilometers, and the minimum visibility was 10 miles, 16 kilometers. There was nothing abnormal about the weather that would impact this sighting. Here is the sighting. May 23rd, around 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Overcast, low ceilings, winds south-southwest at 20 miles and gusting. My sighting began as I was walking to my car in the parking lot of Office Max. That's off Wayne Road, Central City. As I walked out of the store, I saw, coming from due east, a dark-colored object. It was coming directly to me. Thinking this was a helicopter heading back to Canton Plymouth Airport, I thought it might be a news chopper then, or a military chopper, because it was a dark object. This object then closed to less than 1/2 a mile and changed its heading to due south. That's when I noticed this was not a helicopter. I then took out my Google Pixel phone and recorded 2 sets of video. This object made no sound. It rotated and it shifted its shape. This thing displayed no navigational lights, no strobes. The object made a direction heading due south, just below the cloud deck. At first I watched and I questioned. I questioned that rotating. Is it balloons? No, can't be. 20-mile winds from the south-southwest. Balloons can't hold a direct heading into winds, nor can they keep a direct flight path. A drone? No, can't be. The object was rotating and shape-shifting. It had no navigational lights, no strobes. It was moving in small plane restricted space. This object was heading due south into Detroit Metropolitan Airport flyway paths. I saw planes in the area south-southeast of the object, planes taking off. I watched this object form then into a bell shape. You could clearly see the object dispersing the air all around it, 360 degrees. It looked like air off of a jet at sonic boom time. This object moved in a direct manner. It was going 20 to 30 miles per hour. There were no lights, no noise. This was a rotating, shape-shifting thing. estimated the object in the bell form for 20 to 30 feet high in the air at about 20 feet wide. I watched and recorded for 2 minutes. At one point I thought about chasing this object, but that would have been hazardous in traffic. I've got 2 videos, but I can't get them to upload off my phone to my email or to the MUFON site, but you can see them on Facebook. So there's something to do this weekend, gentle listeners. Put it on your to-do list. Go on to Facebook if you can and see if you can find a sighting in Westland, Michigan. And that sighting will carry a date of May 23rd, 2017. Speaking of things to do for the weekend, don't forget to catch Off the Beaten Path, the new feature of UFO Headline News for the weekend edition, where we go, well, obviously, off the beaten path. But for now, we see our path takes us to the time where we say, that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to Inception Radio Network. Follow today's broadcast at ufo-headline-news.com. Take care of each other. We're all in this together. This is Carol Carl. See you tomorrow.